If you're new to incubating eggs, hopefully this video about our Brinsea Maxi II Advance incubator will give you all the information you need about buying, setting up and using this incubator. So why would I choose a Brinsea Maxi II Advance model of incubator? Well, the answer is probably if, firstly, I want an incubator that is known for its quality, reliability and accuracy, as all Brinsea machines are, so that I have a fun and safe experience of hatching. Secondly, if I want a machine that is bigger than our Mini 2 range, the Maxi 2 range is our next size up, which at least doubles the capacity of the Mini. It takes 14 hen eggs and 28 quail-sized eggs, and hopefully you can see the difference in size of those eggs there. Thirdly, I might choose a Maxi II Advance if I know I'm very busy or like to forget to manually turn the eggs every morning and evening, so I need an incubator that turns the eggs for me. For example, if I'm a teacher and I need to know the eggs have been turned in the classroom during the weekend. The Maxi II Advance will rotate the eggs backwards and forwards every 45 minutes for me as standard, but I can also change how often the eggs turn and how far my machine rolls the eggs when turning them. And that's thanks to a small turning motor and a specially moulded turning disc. Fourthly, I'd choose the Maxi II Advance if I might lose track of when the eggs will be hatching, so I'd really value a display that told me how many days to go before my eggs will hatch, and a machine that can stop turning the eggs automatically 2 days before they're due to hatch. Fifthly, I'd choose the Maxi II Advance if I'd like to set the temperature on my machine with the digital control menu and even choose whether I want the temperature to show in Celsius or in Fahrenheit. I'd choose Maxi II Advance if I wanted a machine with alarms that warns me if the room temperature or internal incubator temperature is fluctuating. If I wanted a machine for incubating duck eggs and I want to be able to set periodic cooling on that machine, I'd choose a Maxi II Advance. So those are 8 good reasons why I might choose a Maxi II Advance incubator. However, if I wanted a smaller machine, I'd go for our Mini range. If I wanted to be able to hatch more than 14 eggs, then I'd look at our Ovation 28 and 56 models. If I didn't want the benefit of the digital control and automation, I would look at our Maxi II Eco model. But if, on the other hand, I don't need the countdown to hatch facility, but I do really like the idea of a machine instead where I can set the humidity and it will control accurately for me exactly what the humidity is at a given point in time, then I would choose a Maxi II EX model. Most goose eggs are going to be too large for a Maxi machine. So for goose eggs, you need to look at the Ovation range with large egg carriers. Remember that all our Brinsea machines come with a 3-year warranty, and Brinsea offers a full range of spares and service from our factory in the UK. And we continue to service machines many years after we no longer produce them. Many of our customers have Brinsea machines that are 10 to 15 years old and are still getting service from Brinsea with spares, etc. for those machines. So firstly, take your Maxi II Advance out of its box and always keep the box somewhere safe. We get some important instructions inside of the box. We'll need to make sure we read them. So, we have a little package here we take out, and we have another side package here to take out. We have the incubator itself that we need to take out. And we have a set of paperwork to take out. Okay. So, let's look at the paperwork to start with. First thing you'll notice is that you get a little card here reminding you that you get a 3-year warranty if you register your product on the Brinsea website. Do that straight away. You'll need the serial number, which is on your box. So let's see if we can, hopefully you can see that serial number there. You also get a set of instructions. Those are the instructions. Let's put those in the box for a moment. You get a product brochure as well. Put those away. Okay, so let's unpack what we've got here. So, we have one part of a power supply unit, and we have a second part of a power supply unit. Now, in regard to these power supply units, they are Brinsea power adapters. Always stick to this power supply unit. There are plenty of dodgy imported Chinese adapters, particularly on eBay, that claim to be Brinsea, and they should be avoided. They may cause a hazard and they will invalidate your warranty. Let's unpack our incubator and see what we have. So, we have a lid. We have a base. You'll notice on the base we have a little tube that connects an external top-up pot to a central water pot. We have a disc, a turning disc, and that turning disc is for 14 hen eggs or for 28 quail eggs. You can purchase an optional 40 egg disc for quail that looks like this. You get a water pot cover that sits on the central reservoir, and you get a hatching mat. Set your Maxi II Advance up in a room which doesn't have wide temperature variations. Ideally choose a room where temperature remains between 20 and 25 degrees centigrade. Never allow temperature to drop below 17 degrees centigrade, which can happen on a cold night. Place your incubator on a flat working surface like this so that air is trapped beneath the base of the incubator to create a layer of insulation. Avoid leaving it on the floor. Also, always keep incubators away from direct sunlight. For example, don't put it in front of a kitchen window. Now, for successful incubation, you need the right temperature, you need eggs to be turned, and you need humidity. So, when you initially plug in the incubator, what you'll find is that it will sound a buzzer and it will start to warm up. Let's just quickly do this. Take the guard off the plug. Find ourselves. Okay. Power. Connect our power supply unit up. And connect our power supply to the incubator, and the point at which you connect the power supply to the incubator is just here. Firmly in there. You can hear the buzzer and it immediately starts to warm up. The asterisk on the digital display tells you it's warming up. When it's warming up, it'll be continuously visible. But when it approaches the correct temperature, that asterisk will start to gently pulsate. You'll also notice a flashing P symbol. That appears when the machine is first switched on, but its real function is to appear as a warning if the power has been interrupted during incubation due to a power cut. To clear it, simply press the OK button down for 2 or more seconds. You're then left with the T for temperature and the current temperature reading, which is at 20.8 and rising. Below this, you have the day menu, which tells you how many days remain until hatch. Currently it says 40. But if we are about to start incubating hen eggs, we'd normally want it to read 21 days. We'll show you how to go in and change that in a minute. For ducks, for example, it wouldn't be 21 days, it'd be 28 days. And for eggs like quail, it might be 16 days. So let's talk about setting eggs in our Maxi II Advance incubator. So we need to press the minus and plus button down once together to initially unlock the menu control. Notice how the temperature control menu has now come up. If we want to adjust temperature control, we would press OK once again. But if we want to move on to another menu, like days left to hatch, or the turning interval, then we simply press the plus sign to move on to these, or the minus sign to move back between the menu headings. So let's assume we want to look at each of these menus in turn. To access the menu to check its setting or to make changes, we press OK to enter the menu. Now it tells us that 37.5, which is the factory setting and the recommended setting for hen eggs, is what we see here. If we wanted to move it up or move it down, we use the plus and the minus buttons. Let's stick with our 37.5 and move on to the next menu. The next menu is days to hatch. We want 21 days to hatch, so let's see what we have inside. We've got 40. So using the minus button, we'll take it back down to 21. And OK it. That takes us to turning mode, so let's enter the turning mode and see what we have set. The factory setting is automatic. That means the eggs are automatically being turned and will automatically stop being turned 2 days before hatching, i.e. at the end of day 19, given that we've programmed incubation over 21 days. But it also gives us the option of switching the turning completely off or constantly on. So that's turning mode off, the machine won't turn at all, and that's turning mode completely on, so the machine will keep turning until we stop it to turn. In other words, there's no automatic stop 2 days before hatching. Let's keep it on auto turning and OK that. The turning interval allows us to set how often the machine will turn the eggs. The interval could be from 15 minutes up to 3 hours or 180 minutes. We had it as default on 45, so let's stick with 45. So that means the eggs will be turned every 45 minutes. The turning angle dictates how far the eggs are turned. Now we're normally looking for about 90 to 120 degrees of turning, and that is driven by how far the egg disc is turned, which in turn is driven by how long the turning motor is on driving the egg disc. So if we go into here, we'll see the current angle is set at 5 seconds, which means the egg disc is driven for 5 seconds to turn. If we had bigger eggs, we might want to increase this to 9 or 10 seconds. Let's assume we do. So we're going to OK a turning angle of 9 seconds. Next on the list is the high temperature alarm. Now the high temperature alarm is set currently to 2 degrees centigrade above the incubation temperature that we have in the machine, in this case 37.5. So if for some reason the internal temperature rises beyond 39.5 degrees, the alarm will sound and an H will be displayed on the menu here. Pressing OK will silence the alarm for 30 minutes, but it will sound again if the temperature is still too high. Leaving the incubator in direct sunlight or next to a heat source is most likely to be the reason for the alarm to go off. If the temperature falls below the low temperature limit, which in this case is set 3 degrees below 37.5, which makes it 34.5 degrees, then the low temperature alarm will sound. It will sound if that temperature remains below the 34.5 for more than 60 minutes, and we'll get a little L letter flashing on the display to tell you that actually the low temperature alarm has indeed sounded, even if by then the temperature has rectified itself and you haven't heard the sound alarm on the machine. Let's OK that at 3 degrees. Some users like to introduce some periodic cooling, particularly for waterfowl, to mimic the behaviour of a duck that may leave the eggs on a more regular basis. We strongly advise you not to use this before day 7 of incubation. We can choose whether the cooling is off completely or a time during which it is off on a daily basis. And that time is anything from 10 minutes up to 360 minutes. We'll keep it on off. Finally, we have the centigrade and Fahrenheit menu, where we can decide whether to have the temperature reading in Celsius or Fahrenheit. We'll stick to Celsius. In order to save all the changes that we may have made on the machine in the menus here, we have to go to the Save menu and press OK. It returns us to the standard display menu, and all the changes that we have made have now been saved. We need some fertile eggs from a reputable breeder that are not older than a couple of weeks old, otherwise they may not be viable. If they've been stored, they need to be stored in a cool environment at about 10 degrees centigrade, not in a fridge. Before you put the eggs in the Maxi II Advance, make sure the machine has been running for about an hour so that temperature and humidity have stabilised. We'll come back to the humidity in a minute. Make sure you place the egg disc with the ridges facing upwards, not downwards. And make sure that the hatching mat has been removed from the Maxi II Advance. You either have the turning disc in or the hatching mat, and the hatching mat you only need in there 2 to 3 days before the eggs are due to hatch. So we want our eggs to rotate backwards and forwards between 90 and 120 degrees in total. And that's what your automatic turning will do for you. But before you put your eggs into the Maxi II Advance, we want to be able to monitor how well they are being turned by the turning disc in the Maxi II Advance. So what we suggest is that you mark up all your eggs with an X. Once you've done that for all your eggs, you can place them in the incubator and test how well they roll with the current settings. And the current setting on this machine is turning will activate for 5 seconds, moving that disc round. The bigger the egg, the longer I may need to have the disc turning to get them to turn that 90-degree angle. So let's start by putting all the eggs in and get the X's facing upwards. I'm going to start by putting all my eggs in pointy face inwards. And then, if I find they don't rotate very well, I may change them. Some eggs prefer to rotate with the pointy face, rather they don't prefer, they rotate better with the pointy end facing outwards. I've got 4 eggs here which are supermarket eggs. They won't be fertile, but I didn't have enough eggs to fill the machine from home, so I bought some supermarket eggs to top them up. Right, okay. So, what I need to do is to see how well my eggs rotate with the current turning setup of 5 seconds. So what I can do is I can keep an eye on my X's. They're all about up at the sort of 12 o'clock mark, and I can use the OK and the minus sign on my menu just to rotate those eggs and see what they do. Okay. If I then find eggs haven't really rotated, I may want to, like I say, shift them, turn them the other way around to see if they rotate better. I can press the OK and the minus button again and rotate them back the other way. Eggs rotate backwards and forwards each time. And I would see if my X mark has come back up to the 12 o'clock position. When you're comfortable that the eggs on average are turning OK, mark each of the eggs up with a second pencil mark, a 0. I pick the eggs out of the disc, rotate the egg until the X is at a 10 o'clock, and then make the 0 mark at about 2 o'clock on the egg. Like that, you can keep an eye when it's in the machine, again like this is, on whether the X's and the 0s are returning alternately to approximately the 12 o'clock position. It won't be exact because no 2 eggs are completely identical. So let's look now at humidity. Eggs lose a certain amount of weight by the time the chicks hatch. If the incubator is too dry, they lose too much weight. If it's too humid, they won't lose enough weight. We aim to lose 13% of the initial egg weight by the time the chicken egg hatches and about 14% for duck eggs. For controlling humidity, the Maxi II Advance has an external top-up facility. Keeping water beneath the top-up depth mark maintains water in one half of the central reservoir, giving the right humidity for the first 19 days. Every time you take the lid off, the humidity level will drop. However tempting it may be, try not to lift the lid to inspect eggs at less than 6-hour intervals, just to help maintain the humidity, especially during the hatching period. And make sure at hatching that the pot cover is fitted to prevent chicks drowning when they hatch. Keeping water above the top of the depth mark for the last 2 days before hatching ensures that both halves of the pot have water in. which means that during the last 2 days of hatching in particular, you can ensure high humidity is maintained without having to lift the lid off the incubator. From about day 8, you can check that you have viable embryos by canning the eggs with a cannling kit like this one. This is an overview, and this is an overscope. We place the overscope over the top of the overview. We take an egg from our machine. We place the egg in the overscope, and we place the lid back on the overscope. We look through the eyepiece, we rotate, we make sure the overview is on, we rotate the egg so we can get a better view, and the overscope also magnifies the image. From about day 8, we should be able to see the development of blood vessels. And certainly by about day 11, we should be able to see a darker formation that is the embryo developing inside the egg. We should also be able to see the clear development of the air sac at the base of the egg. From day 8 to 11, if we have an egg that appears clear, then we can conclude that the egg wasn't fertile, it can be removed. Equally, if we have an egg that has a blood ring, then that would indicate that the embryo has died, and that egg also can be removed. So, that's candling. We can candle every 3 days up to about day 18. Now the Maxi II Advance, if you have the automatic turning on the machine, it will stop turning at the end of day 19, that is the end of day 3 from hatch. If you haven't got the automatic turning selected, then you will have to go into the menu and stop the turning. We take the turning disc out at the end of day 19, and we put the hatching mat into the machine with ridges facing upwards so that the chicks grip more comfortably when they hatch. At the same time, as we've discussed previously about the water, we top up the reservoir to make sure both central pots are filled with water. So once our chicks have hatched, we can leave them in there for 1 to 2 days before transferring them under a brooder like the Incubator. And the Incubator 20 provides a gentle heat. It's got a heating plate underneath. It's black, so it creates a dark environment. And what's important about this model is it doesn't get too hot, so the chicks can actually go up against the heating plate if they want to keep warm. It's very economical to run this particular machine, and what you'll find is that the chicks, if you place them in there, as soon as you transfer them out, you place them under the heat, they'll recognize that and they'll gravitate back to your electric hen. You need to give them some chick crumb, some water. Make sure that the water you provide them is in a very shallow dish, preferably with some pebbles in it, so again they can't drown in the dish, and provide them with some form of bedding, which it may be a newspaper, or you can purchase some bedding from your local store. Having finished hatching all your chicks, which these haven't yet finished, all that remains then to do is to take the care to clean up your machine to avoid any possibility of contamination of future eggs. So if we're going to clean our machine, we always disconnect the incubator from the mains. We don't put any parts of our incubator in the dishwasher or in liquids over 50 degrees centigrade. We wash the base with a disinfectant. Now we recommend Brinsea concentrated disinfectant. You make up a solution with the disinfectant of 1 teaspoon to half a litre of water. That's all you need to do, and make a cloth damp in that solution and just clean over the machine. Hoover inside under the fan to pull out any hatching dust and things, because when they do hatch they do create quite a bit of dust, so hoover that gently out with a hoover, wipe it all down, and then importantly run your incubator dry for a couple of hours just to make sure it is nice and dry inside before you store it away. If you have any problems with your hatching project, please contact us. We want you to enjoy hatching eggs in your Brinsea incubator. And if you have enjoyed your experience of using your Maxi II Advance incubator, please help us by sharing your experience with us. Please do feel free to send us any clips or photos with stories of your successful hatching projects to sales@brinsea.co.uk. We may well use those clips in our newsletter or on our website. Thank you.